What if technology could predict the behavior of human beings? What would that mean for free will? That is one of the many philosophical questions that the new miniseries Devs on Effects on Hulu asks. It's just started airing, and I'm going to be doing reviews weekly as it comes out, so subscribe to the channel if you want to hear those. And my initial thoughts are that I think on a scale of okay, bad, good, great, and wow, I would say right now for me it's in a good category. And that's because I think that it has some very, very good strengths as a TV show, and it also has some very big weaknesses. The show is from Alex Garland, who is he's a novelist first, but then he's also a writer and a director of some really, really good films. He wrote and directed actually Annihilation, which was kind of esoteric, kind of hard to get into for a lot of people, but also a film that was much better received, Ex Machina. And here he's reuniting with the star of Ex Machina, which is Sonoya Masuno, and she's playing a Lily Chan. And Lily Chan is a computer programmer who is investigating a quantum computing company she believes may be responsible for her boyfriend's disappearance. The show also features Nick Offerman as Forrest, the CEO of the company, Amaya, and Allison Pill as Katie. Those are the most noteworthy actors in the cast. The cinematography comes from the director of photography, Rob Hardy, who has worked on a number of noteworthy projects. He's worked with Alex Garland in the past on Ex Machina, which had very, very good cinematography. And he's also worked on, more recently, on Mission Impossible Fallout. So the tone of this show actually reminds me a lot of another show on FX, and that is Legion, which had a very, very weird vibe to it. It could have just been a normal show, but it went for a more weird tone. It also reminds me of the esoteric style that Garland has shown previously in Annihilation, and it has some plot similarities to Annihilation, with both stories being about a woman who is trying to find out what happened to a loved one. It also kind of reminds me of Mr. Robot in that it's just technically very excellent, but remotely, you feel like it's emotionally remote. It's very visually interesting. It's concept-driven sci-fi. It has a very energetic, synthesizer-driven score, which kind of keeps you feeling the mood at all times. It's very slow-paced. I would say very, very little happens in an episode. The episodes take about an hour. You probably won't be bored just because there's enough going on visually that if you aren't someone that needs a ton of plot and a ton of dialogue, you might be able to maintain your interest, but it is developing at a very, very slow pace. It's very artful, and I appreciate that I'm probably missing a lot of the intricacies of what the framing and the cinematography and the other artistic aspects of the directing are trying to communicate. I will say that when there's not a lot of dialogue, as I said, and when there is dialogue, it's very vague and portentous. It's not very realistic dialogue. I would also say that for the most part, like the shows I've described, it's somewhat of an emotionally sterile experience. You don't really feel a strong connection to any of the characters, even though you're following this woman as she tries to figure out what happened to her lover. And it's very philosophically dense. You feel like they're just quoting their philosophy professor in college at you a lot of the time, which can be a good or a bad thing. Like I said, I think the episodes are slow, and I think it's because they're too long. I think it's only going to be 8 episodes from what I've been reading. They're all directed by Alex Garland, which is nice. I like having that consistency of creative vision. But I just recently read an article where someone said that they're testing out a Netflix feature where you could watch entertainment at 2 times speed. And I can't help but feel like that feature would come in pretty handy with this show because there's a lack of dialogue, as I said, and there's just these scenes that are very long and drawn out. And it does increase the mood that they are long and drawn out, but I can't help but feel that the scenes would play pretty well if they were cut significantly. I'd say that the show is very, very intriguing. The mysteries pull you in if you're patient. The show is very, very current. It deals with a lot of issues that are on the news right now, such as Russian spies and corporate espionage, the limits of technology. So it's got a lot going on. It's not very political. There are some statements by characters that could be taken to be political, but I haven't seen any outright criticisms of current American politicians as of yet, if that's something that you would turn a show off for. It mixes a lot of genres. I would criticize it for not being quite as smart as it thinks it is. Being able to quote a philosophy textbook doesn't make you super intelligent, in my opinion, inherently, if you can't integrate those themes well into the architecture of your story. So far, the show, this miniseries, has been very, very unpredictable. I expected the plot to go in certain directions that it didn't go. I think that the main character is an interesting character, mainly because of the way that Sonoya plays her. I think that Nick Offerman's character is intriguing, but we don't know an awful lot about him just yet. There's some surprisingly brutal scenes in the first 2 episodes that have been released on Hulu and that played on FX. So if you're thinking, about watching this, just realize there are some pretty disturbing scenes. Overall, though, as I said, on a scale of bad to wow, I would say that so far it's just good. And a lot of that has to do with the pacing and how it doesn't really create an emotional bond with the characters as of yet. I don't hate the characters, but I don't really love them. They're not people that I would follow to the ends of the earth. And I don't really know enough about them yet to say whether they're compelling or not. So that's my review of the first 2 episodes of Devs. I think that the title is actually odd. I would have expected this to have a more philosophical title like Annihilation or Ex Machina, because it seems like a spiritual cousin to those films. So, as I said, I'm going to be doing reviews as episodes are released, so tune in for more. That's Plot First's review of Devs.